Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another featured guest here on Jenisys Solutions Diabetes, the sugar-sweet enemy, where we showcase guests who have transformed their lives following a devastating diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. From time to time, we'll also discuss alternative ways and methods that they have used to assist them in their journey. My hope is that you'll be inspired to start your journeys and transform your own lives and your health, to feel better, to look better, and to be better versions of yourself. Thank you for joining us for today's story of transformation. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jenisys Walters. Now, today I wanted to kind of bring to you a guest that I had on my show several months ago, Jackie Smith-Searcy. So Jackie Smith-Searcy is with us again today, but she has got a really interesting, powerful story to tell us today, because apparently when she had the diagnosis of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, some time back, and was really devastated by that diagnosis, she decided that she was going to beat this thing. She was going to kick this diabetes thing to the curb. She wasn't going to let it defeat her. She was able to do that. She was able to get her sugars under control, surprised herself, surprised her doctor, was really on her way to complete healing. But then she had a setback. So Jackie is here today to kind of give us some insight into what that setback was, but not only that, how she was able to overcome that second setback. And why this is important for this message to be told to you today is because people go through things when they have been diagnosed with a real debilitating illness. They go through despair, they go through anger, they go through loss, they go through denial, they go through a lot of changes emotionally. And what they do when they go through their first setback, little setback, or they go off their meal plan, they want to give up. They want to quit. But Jackie is here to tell you today that you don't have to quit, because that's just a little setback in the road. And then you can overcome that and you can keep going. So we are so excited that Jackie's back with us today to tell us her story. And I'm going to let her basically tell her story because it's a powerful one. And I can't tell it any better than Jackie can. So I'm going to let Jackie tell her story, and then we'll ask her some questions to kind of clarify some things, and we'll go from there. So welcome, 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 Jackie. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
All
Praise be to
right.
God.
Amen. Amen. So I want you to kind of tell them what you told me. You called me up and you gave me this story, and we got to get you back on. Definitely, we got to get you back on because people need to hear what you went through. So let us know exactly what happened to you. You can give us a little synopsis of what happened the first go around with your doctor, a little short synopsis of that, and then what happened with the setback after your surgery following the interview that we had.
Okay. Well, like Janice said, I was 2 weeks when I was on the show the first time. It had been 2 weeks since I had my surgery. I
Okay.
did awesome with the surgery, but let me talk about the surgery. When I went into surgery, I no longer had diabetes. My doctor told me that. He told me very few patients believe they can ever be healed from diabetes. Well, I went into this knowing that I serve a big and mighty God, and I knew it was not God's will for me to have diabetes. So for me to be cured from diabetes, no longer taking any medications, and then 2 months later, diagnosed with having cancer, I'm like, oh, just like God allowed me to beat diabetes, come on, bring it on. I'm going to beat cancer. Well, after I had the surgery to remove the form of cancer that I had, and I had a very rare form of cancer. It's called a neuroendocrine tumor. It's a form of cancer, but it's a rare form of cancer, and it was mild. It was a mild form of cancer. Nevertheless, it was cancer at the end of my pancreas. They
Wow.
cut my pancreas, they repaired a hernia that I had, and they also removed my spleen. But
So I got a
good.
question about that because I want people to understand what you had an operation on your pancreas, is what you're telling us. And I need
Yeah.
people to understand, anybody that's out there that has diabetes, they know about the pancreas or should know about the pancreas, that the pancreas is critical in what we need to have supplying us with insulin to break down the sugar that our body breaks down from the food. So when the pancreas is in trouble, we are really in trouble as diabetics. So this is important that Jackie, after having diabetes and cured from that, 2 months later had pancreatic, almost like a rare form of cancer on the pancreas that now had to be removed. So go ahead and tell us the story.
Yes. So as soon as they removed my pancreas that same day, I had to have insulin. They had to give me insulin because my glucose level was completely off. So I stayed in the hospital 5 days. Each day they gave me insulin, but no one told me when I was discharged, okay, you have to go back on insulin. And you have to
Mm,
go back if you have metformin, you should go back on that as well. You need to follow up with your primary care physician. I
mm,
thought maybe, oh, I overlooked it, but I looked at my discharge case and there was nowhere in my discharge where they said go back on insulin. So,
mm.
okay, let's fast forward about 2 weeks and a half. It was nighttime. I was driving and I stopped and looked at a gas station sign and it was blurry. And I said, oh my God, something's wrong. And then I had it wasn't a yeast infection, but I noticed something was off when I urinated. That's because I was urinating with sugar coming out. And when I checked my blood sugar level, it was higher than when I was first diagnosed. It was it was almost at 600. When I was initially diagnosed with diabetes, it was at 500. 500 is too high. 500 is coma level. So almost 600,
It's crazy.
it was nothing but the grace of God. Of
Right.
course, I'm human. I cried, but after I cried, it was early in the morning, like 6:15 a.m. Monday morning. So I knew to wait until my primary care physician's office opened. But the Lord led me to take metformin
Okay.
because I had 1,000 milligram of metformin to take in the morning and 1,000 milligrams to take at bedtime when I was on diabetes medication
Got it.
along with the insulin. So I went ahead, the medication hadn't expired. So I went ahead and took that. And I called the doctor as soon as he opened, and he brought me in the same day. But by the time I got to the doctor, it had dropped from 594 to 494. Still high, still at a coma level, but it started going down. So he gave me a shot of insulin. He gave me 30 units. Okay. And he told me, keep taking your metformin and you must take uh, the 30 units of
Units.
milligram. I'm sorry, of insulin each night. So I
Okay.
started doing that. I was exercising every day, walking. I was eating right. And he was concerned because this started like January 3rd. That's the first day he saw me, and he put me back on insulin, and
Mhm.
I went back on the metformin, and he was concerned because no matter what I was doing, my glucose level wouldn't come down. It
Wow.
was slowly, but it was still in the danger zone. That's what it
Mhm.
was. So because I trust God, I kept doing what I'm supposed to do. And no matter what the doctor was saying, I was listening to the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit told me, keep on walking. I got
Mm.
to the point I was walking in the morning when I got up, and I
Wow.
was walking at night before I went to bed. I
Wow.
made sure, and I was eating right. So the doctor had to send me to an endocrinologist, and she was concerned because now it's like 2 weeks and my blood sugar level is still quite high.
Wow.
And so my doctor had put me on Trulicity. It's some type of hormone replacement. It
Mhm.
was working good, but it was bringing it down. But my endocrinologist was concerned because she said, based on her research, the Trulicity, there was a high risk of cancer. So she
Mm.
didn't want me on that. So she took me off of that right away. So they had to increase my insulin. So they
Wow.
increased it. It went from 30, and they didn't increase it all at once. Each week they kept increasing it between her and my primary care physician. So I started off taking 30 units of insulin and ended up, let's say, at 60. Yep, I was at 60 units. And
Wow.
then they had to put me on rapid insulin. And he told me, he said, I don't want you getting upset with me, but the rapid insulin causes weight gain. You've done so
Um,
well. He said, you're going to gain 15 to 20 pounds. I said to myself, the devil is a liar.
oh
All
my
this hard
goodness.
work.
After you've done so well.
Right. After this hard work, but I listened to him because it was very important to get my blood sugar level under control. So I prayed to God, and God told me just keep doing what I'm doing. And I went ahead and started giving myself the rapid insulin. I had to take the rapid insulin with each meal, with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, if I
Wow.
didn't eat lunch, that meant I only took it twice. But because of my body, some days I couldn't eat 3 meals,
Okay.
but I still exercise. So I turned up the exercising, and I made sure my favorite liquid is water. I drink so much water a day, and it
Wow.
helps me. It helps flush out a lot of things. So no matter what, my doctor got nervous because now let's say we into a month and my
Wow.
blood sugar is coming down,
But
but it's
not quick
not
enough.
coming down fast enough for the doctor. And then, of course, I had to get off of the Trulicity. So that slowed it down some, but I kept taking it. So one day I noticed, okay, he's increased my insulin and my rapid insulin. Why am I still taking the same pen? So I went in to see my doctor because by then, let me just say, my blood sugar finally got back
And
under
then,
control. It
okay.
got back under control mid-February. So it took like six weeks.
Okay.
For 6 weeks, my blood sugar level was up. It was high. It was not in the normal range. So 6 weeks after we found out initially, because I had the surgery, that my pancreas, you know, the blood sugar level it all starts within the pancreas. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning so much. I didn't know that. I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
stop to research that. I
Mm-hmm.
know that now. So
Yeah.
when it was cut, it threw my blood sugar level out of
Out.
control. So that's what happened. So the doctor told me also, when they put me on the regular and the rapid insulin, he told me I was going to be on insulin the rest of my life.
Oh no.
And I asked them, you mean to tell me I'm going to be on insulin and rapid insulin the rest of my life? And I looked at him kind of sideways. Then he said, let me clear it up. There's a good chance you'll get off the rapid insulin and you have a 50-50 chance of getting off the regular insulin.
Oh, wow.
So I said, so let me, if I understand you correctly, you're saying I may be diabetic the rest of my life? He said, you have a 50-50 chance. And that's all I needed to hear, because I knew God is bigger than diabetes. He's bigger than cancer. He's bigger than any illness that we
Right.
can get. So I said, okay, thank you for sharing your knowledge with me. Okay, so let me come back now to when I was like, something is off. Why am
Yeah.
I still on the same pen? It's
Hmm.
double the rapid and the rapid and
And
the
the
regular.
regular.
Why am I still on the same pen from January?
Right.
And so when I showed them, because I took both pens into my doctor's office visit, mind you, my numbers had been normal since the middle of February. And he took the pen, showed me how I'm supposed to give myself the normal and the rapid insulin. And then he did something that I had never did. I'm like, wait, you mean to tell me when you turn the pen to the number that it's supposed to be, you're supposed to hit the top and let it automatically get back to the zero? He said, yes. I said, I wasn't doing that. He said, what were you doing? I was taking it. And once, let's say the regular insulin, when it got to 60, I was manually, I wasn't hitting the top of the pen. I hitting the top of the pen, and I was mad. I had the needle stuck in my arm, not my arm, my stomach or my thigh, because I rotated it all day long.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though the needle was there in my stomach or my thigh, because I was manually turning it back to zero, I was not giving myself any insulin.
Oh my goodness.
You sound just like my doctor, because
Oh my goodness.
that's
When you
exactly.
when you click the top of the pen, that's what administers the medication into under your skin. That's what does it. You're pushing the medication, administering the medication through that needle by pushing that top into you. So when you're turning it back, you're basically pulling that medication back up into the tube. You're not really taking it. My goodness. So then what happened after he told you that? After he
He
realized you
was,
weren't getting the medication?
and it was really his fault. He showed me one time, but because, not that I'm leaning on, I had a stroke, but what he should have done after he showed me how to do it, he should have said, now let me see you demonstrate it to make sure.
That you know how to do
And
it.
that didn't happen. And I missed the pushing in the top of the pen to give myself the medication.
Got
But
it.
what I was surprised, he said, wow, this changes everything. It certainly did, because I had been normal. My numbers have been normal since February. It's the end of March, almost April. But this is where he threw me off. He said, we have to start you all over. And I said, start me all over with what? He said, you got to take the insulin pen. I said, I don't understand.
Mm.
I think he wanted to try and he was experimenting on me, but he was being very careful on how he said it. Because first of all,
Well, we're
if
speculating. We're speculating on what he was trying to do. But what I'd like to know is, even though he said that, what was your response to him
I
saying that?
didn't,
You didn't
I
have a
didn't get it.
response?
I didn't get it. He said, forget the 60 milligrams. We're going to start you back on 30, not 30 milligrams, 30 units.
Okay.
I have to remember to call these units. He said, we're going
Yeah.
to start you back at 30 on the long-term insulin, and we're going to
Mhm.
start you, instead of the 8 that we thought you were on for the rapid insulin, we're going to start you with three with each meal. But
Wow.
when I asked him, why do I got to get back on it? He never came out and gave me a clear answer. And I
So let
let,
me ask you this question just for clarification, because I'm listening to this and I'm wondering if people are having the same question that I'm having in my mind. So when you were doing the rapid insulin, was it a separate needle from the other one? Was it two different needles?
yes,
So then you were not getting medication from either one?
no, because I was doing both of them the same way,
Wrong way. Oh my goodness.
manually turning it back to zero.
Oh my goodness. So then
So
you
both,
weren't getting any medication really.
and they were both brand new, and they stayed brand new from January all the way to the end of March. And then he kept increasing it. Because he knew it was taking too long for my insulin level to go, no, I'm sorry, my glucose level to go
Go
down.
down.
So his thought was, let me increase, let me increase. So when he would increase it, I would increase it. But I was
Wow.
not giving myself the medication. But here was my biggest concern. Even after I left his office,
Hmm.
I said, because I'm very spiritual, I started asking the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, some questions. Okay, Holy Spirit, my blood sugar has been perfect. It's perfect now, but it's been on in a normal range since the
Yeah,
middle of February.
right.
We found out the error why it took so long to get to that. Nevertheless, it became normal.
Hmm.
So now that it's normal, why would who
Still.
my doctor that I've had 13 years, that I respect and trust his medical judgment, why would he ask me to get on it? And he hasn't given me a, a, a good answer on why I should get back on it.
Right.
So I didn't get back on it the day he told me. I got back on it like 2, 3 days later. And
Okay.
the Holy Spirit told me, he felt comfortable letting me test it. I wanted to see. I'm no professional, but I'm smart enough to know 2 and 2 equals 4.
Mhm.
So if your blood sugar is perfect, Jackie, and when I tell you perfect, Jenis, 110 to 120.
Oh, that's perfect.
You
That's
thank you.
perfect. Uh-huh.
You. I already knew if I start taking it that it was going to drop it too low. But I tried it. I tried it. And I tried it 3 times.
Hmm.
And all 3 times it was under 79. 79, because I'm talking to someone who's already dealt with diabetes. 79 to 179 is what they consider a normal range. So anything under 79, something is going on. I
Mm.
knew what was going on. I knew I wasn't supposed to be back on the insulin, whether rapid or normal insulin.
Wow.
I haven't been back to the doctor. And that's another thing. If I wasn't doing so well, he would have still kept me on 2 weeks. Because when I
Right.
first started out with him in January, I was going twice a week. Then I was going once a week. Then I
Okay.
went every 2 weeks. So now today I'm doing well. You put me on a month, but you put me on insulin. That doesn't
So,
add up.
so let me ask you this question then. Did you make a call to the doctor's office to let him know that your
No,
sugars
they
were going low?
no, they when I left his office, he
Uh-huh.
told me his office will call me in 2 weeks. So I felt led to just wait until they called me. And sure enough, his nurse called me and I told her what happened. She said, "Oh
Okay.
my goodness, it dropped too low." I said, "Yes, it did. I knew it would. Why didn't the doctor know it would?" And it made me question. I said, I wonder if he's getting a kickback and I don't know. I'm just
Well,
speculating.
that's speculation, yeah. And
Yeah,
so
but
I really want us to focus though on, it might mean that you may need another doctor. I don't know, but right now, in terms of speculating, what I want to
mm,
focus on is where do you go from here? Because
mhm.
with your sugars being back to normal and he not thinking that they would get back to normal, but the fact is that they are back to normal. We even, in spite of the fact that you weren't even giving yourself the medication, either one of them. So to me, that is a testament and a testimony in itself. So where do you go from here? Where do you think your journey is going to take you from here? Because if your sugars are back to normal, then you're back on your journey and you're back on your lifestyle change and you're back to where you needed to be. Where do you go from here?
Well, one thing
What,
I,
how is
I
the let's put it this way. How is the conversation going to go when you go back to your doctor's office and then he's asking you, well, I understand that your sugar was too low. Have you taken it? You haven't taken it. Well, how is your conversation going to go with the doctor? Because you really don't need it. So, I mean, if your sugars are showing that you don't need it, how do you think your conversation will actually go when you go back?
well, I've trusted him for the last 13 years, and I don't want to just walk away from him.
No, I
And
don't think you should walk
no,
away,
no,
but you should have
I'm
a
not going.
conversation. Yeah.
But as far as the conversation, I'm gonna be quite frank with him. Why I'm going to ask a question. I'm no doctor. I knew that my numbers were great. Something in you, either you didn't believe my numbers, and if you tell me, oh, Jackie, I just wanted to see, okay, I don't like that, but at least you're being honest. Because there was no doubt in my mind that the numbers was going to drop too low. And that's why I wasn't scared to take the medication, but that's why I didn't want to take it. I'm like,
Mhm.
Jackie, if your number is 110 to 120, when you take this medication, it's going to drop it too low. And
So let me
it's,
ask you this, Jackie. Did it not occur maybe to you that because the doctor has seen similar situations, he was expecting a similar outcome, but because of who you are and because of whose you are, that similar situation was not going to be a similar situation. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe the fact is that what he's used to seeing, because you are a different example of what should have happened, that there was something else at work here, someone else at work here besides the doctor and the medication, that maybe that was why he was like, well, this is not normal. This is what I know. So maybe this is what I need to prescribe. Maybe that's as simple as it is, that he's not used to miracles with his patients. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so that's probably what it could be, that he's not used to seeing that type of miracle happen in front of his eyes. And so he's going from his medical knowledge, he's going from his, intelligence knowledge of what he's used to treating and what he should have happened. But in your case, didn't happen. I'm just thinking that this is a testimony all over again right here, that you have an opportunity to testify that sometimes medicine, there's something bigger going on than the medicine. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to testify and for you to witness, right? What do you think?
yes. Well, I agree with what you're saying, but I also know he's a very smart man. And just based on the facts that were in front of him
Yeah.
and how well I was doing, he should have said, well, don't get on the insulin. But if you see your numbers going back up after a day or two, then give yourself the minimum dose.
Gotcha.
I still feel,
There was a
I
different
think it's
approach
because
that he
I
could have
still
taken.
feel he made an error. And the
Okay.
reason I feel that because no, the reason I feel he made an error and what may have happened, he's never dealt with a case like mine.
Right.
He told me,
Well, I'm
I'm
thinking
his
that's
first,
it too. That's what I was trying to
yes,
explain. That I don't think
I'm
he's
the
dealt with
first,
a case like yours before, and it's typical. It's not typical of what should have happened after pancreatic operations, or because the pancreas is critical to your blood sugar control, period.
Yes.
So for you to have an operation, for them to cut piece of that away, and then for your sugars to be so totally out of control, and now be back to normal so soon after, that's unusual. So I guess he was thinking in terms of prevention of something happening versus if something happens, then you treat. Now, my father was always a proponent of prevention is better than cure. So do what you need to do to prevent something happening, as opposed to having something happen and then you go try to treat it to bring it back to where it needs to be. So there's two schools of thought here. So maybe his school of thought is, well, she's had this major operation and I don't want her to kind of get really out of control after the operation if she's on no medication. So maybe we need to have her on some, but because it wasn't doing what it needed to do initially and he was increasing it, that threw him for a loop too, because you weren't even giving yourself the medication. So that whatever he was used to seeing wasn't happening even then, because he was used to giving you, you know, an increase to see some result, and that result wasn't happening. So that wasn't normal, right? So I think maybe he was erring. I'm just speaking for the doctor. I'm not, I'm not saying that he was right or wrong, but I'm saying that possibly what could have happened is that he was erring on the side of caution because what he was prescribing wasn't working anyway. And so rather than have you get out of control quickly again, maybe stay on something and then wean you off. If your sugars continue to be whatever they needed to be, then wean you off accordingly. So I don't know. So don't
Well,
throw him under the bus yet.
no,
Just
and I
just
haven't.
yeah, no, just know that maybe that this is with another way for him to approach it, because the way he was approaching it, like he knew to approach it, wasn't working as far as he was seeing. So he was increasing it every time he was increasing it. And you were on two medications and then still nothing. So, but then it was normal in February, right? It was normal in February, but with the increase, there should have been some difference in the results of your sugars, but there wasn't. So I don't know.
Right.
So
Thing
from
is,
here, though, you're going to have that frank conversation with him.
yes, I am.
And so let me ask you, what's different this time around with the sugar being controlled than the first time around when it wasn't, when you were controlling it the first time? What's different? I mean, you kind of know a little bit of the ropes now. So what's different? What's changed this time around with the second
What,
setback?
well, what was it? I'm glad you asked that question, Janice, because now that I think back, even when I was first diagnosed, the day before Thanksgiving 2020, I never knew how to give myself the medication. I wasn't on insulin. My diet, me eating the right way, me
Yes.
exercising every
Yes.
day, and the metformin. I'm gonna be honest. I was on metformin,
Gotcha.
so that was the only medication that helped me, along with eating right and exercising.
So
So
you had
that's
never
one.
taken insulin the first time around.
Just when he gave it to me in his office.
Okay. So that's definitely different. But guess what? You're off it now. And hopefully,
Yeah.
prayerfully, for good, right?
Yes.
For
And I'm
good.
going to make sure it's for good because
Yes.
I'm paying attention. And that's one thing I want people to understand. Respect your doctor,
Yeah.
but please pay attention to your body. It's our bodies. We
Yes.
can't expect the doctors to do everything. The
And know
doctors,
everything.
they have went to medical school, they know more than us, but they don't know our bodies like we know our body.
Right.
And that's why I wasn't mad at my doctor, but I said, Lord, why didn't he know based on the results that if he put me back on insulin, that should have been real easy for him to know that it's gonna get too low. He
Yeah.
should have known that.
So let me ask you this question. When you took the insulin, What were the symptoms that you felt? Because you weren't on insulin before. And we talked the last time about some of the symptoms that you were experiencing when your sugars were high, when they actually got under control, how you felt better. With the insulin, what differences in feelings did you feel when you took the insulin? Did it bring it down really quickly? If you were getting the shakes, if your eyes were blurry at that point when you noticed they were blurry when you were driving, how quickly did all of that regulate after really getting your sugars back to normal? How long did it take for your sugars to kind of get regulated again and the blurriness to go away and all of that kind of stuff?
Okay. And I'm so glad you asked that because I'm on a prayer group. I'm in a prayer group and it had gotten so bad, Janice. I couldn't I couldn't lead the prayer group. I couldn't read the Bible.
Wow.
My eyes had gotten that blurry. And it took like a month or two before I could.
Before it came down. Okay,
Yeah.
now do you think if you were getting the insulin the proper way, that would have happened quicker though, maybe, possibly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I do believe that without a doubt. And that's
Okay.
what was throwing my doctor off. Like, oh my God, what? I'm increasing this insulin. He told
Yes.
me, he told me he was nervous. He was getting ready to bring me into the hospital to
Wow.
have them regulate me, to
Wow.
have them watch me 24/7, because he didn't know what else to do. But it just so happened the day that he was going to admit me in the hospital, I walked in and my blood sugar was normal. It was
Wow.
169.
Saved by the bell.
He said,
Wow.
he said
So let
that's
me ask you that I mean, he must have been surprised when that
it threw
happened.
him off. Like, she's been running high. She comes in here and it's 169. It hadn't been that way since before I had the surgery.
Wow. Wow.
But it
So then
saved
you didn't
me.
have to go to the hospital. You didn't have to go in for observation, none of that. But let me ask you about another kind of feeling, because when you had this second setback, I'm sure that there was some feelings of despair. And I'm sure that there was some feelings of maybe I'm a failure. I failed at this. Did you feel any of that? Did you feel any of, feelings of I must have failed or something? What happened here? And I'm back to square one. Any kind of those feelings
You know
that you
what? Honestly, I didn't. Because I knew then it was a spiritual battle. I said, nope,
There you go. Okay.
I'm gonna keep calling those things that be not as though they were. My
I
my
hear you.
my blood sugar level would be high, and I would smile and I would say, oh Lord, I thank you that my blood sugar level is normal. I thank you. And I kept repeating it.
Awesome.
I kept
Awesome.
all
Awesome.
doubts away from me. I didn't even tell too many people what I was going
Wow.
through because I didn't need anybody, whose faith wasn't up there with mine. I didn't need them
Yes. To
speaking
take away from that.
negative things. I didn't want, I only told a few people, and the few people I told, I knew they were prayer warriors. And
There
I
you
knew
go.
they were on the same level and praying. And when we
Gotcha.
prayed, it became so. But I knew I had to do my part. I
Right.
knew I had to continue eating right. I knew I had to exercise.
So you
I
kept
knew
those things going.
I had to get the proper amount of rest. I knew all of that. So I never had any doubts. I never felt like a failure. And thank you for bringing that up. Because once upon a time, not too long ago, because of
Yep.
all these issues I used to have, and I had low self-esteem, I would have gave up like a lot of people do. Instead of educating themselves, instead of getting on the word and asking God to show you what you need to do. And I
Well,
don't,
now you said two important things that I want to address right there, because I think this is important for people to hear and get. That not only do you have a spiritual connection, now, whatever that spiritual connection is for anybody else who's listening out there, that's what you drew on. And for whatever that is for you, whatever that means for you guys who are listening, that's what you draw on. But not only that, there was a second thing that you said that really got my attention. And that is that you do your research and understand your own bodies, because sometimes in conjunction with the doctor, in conjunction with your spiritual connection and the power that you draw from that, then just having the knowledge, you can then be able to have an educated conversation with your doctor. You can have an informed conversation with your doctor about your body, about your health, and choose the best path forward. But I think those two things are powerful. Knowing that it's not you by yourself in the fight, that you have something stronger, bigger, better to help you through spiritually or whatever it is that you draw on. And then also to have your own research done and to understand the illness that you have and how it affects you and what you need to do to be in control of that, in spite of the medication and in spite of everything else. I think those are two key things that you talked about that I think people need to understand, that yes, it's a fight. Yes, it's a battle. Yes, it's a struggle, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming and it doesn't have to be unsurmountable, or insurmountable. It can be managed and it can be done. And if you need to draw on your spiritual strength, if you need to draw on your prayer, if you need to draw on your meditation, your devotion, whatever it is that you draw on, and then in conjunction with the doctor's directions and medications, if they're prescribed, and if they're not, more power. But those are two important factors that I think people need to understand that they need to incorporate when they're fighting something as debilitating as diabetes, especially when it's in extreme numbers. So I really thank you for bringing that forward and for sharing that's where you draw your strength from, and that prayer works and prayer is powerful, and your spiritual connection works and is powerful, but also understanding who you are physically so that you can make some informed decisions with your doctor and for yourself. I think those are two powerful things. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to talk about something very important that I'm just
Yes.
learning how to do. First of all, I'm believing God that I'm already healed. Once again, I'm going to have another victory. I'm no longer going to have diabetes. I don't even claim it anymore. I don't claim it. I don't claim it. But this is the one thing that I'm personally learning how to do. Jackie, relax. Watch how you eat. But we're made of flesh. And even though I don't really eat sweets anymore, but every now and then, if I have sweets, guess what? I will go ahead and eat it. I don't eat it every day. I don't eat it every week. So let's say I eat sweets twice a month.
Okay.
What I do after I eat, I make sure before I check my glucose level, I make sure that I walk. And it never lets me down now. It gives me a normal reading. You know why?
Wow.
Because when it goes up and we're active, it comes back down. It's us being inactive what keeps it up. So I've changed my
Ah.
lifestyle. Girl, I exercise. I don't care if I got to exercise 3 times a day. If I feel like eating whatever I want, I no longer say I'm not going to eat that. I do it in moderation. Like I said, I used to be addicted to sweets. I'm no longer addicted to sweet. I went a whole year after I was diagnosed with
Wow.
diabetes
Without it.
without anything sweet. And then now I eat it maybe say once a month or once every other month. I'm no
There you
longer
go.
addicted. But when I do eat that or anything wrong, because it's
Uh-huh.
lots of things that are wrong that are not sweets.
Mm-hmm.
Before I take my blood sugar level, I
You
get
exercise.
myself up and walk 30 minutes and
Okay.
burn it off.
Okay.
And
So
my
you know
blood
what?
sugar.
I think that's really important what that you said, because I think people need to know that, because there's people out there with the mindset that they can't do this and they can't do that and they can't eat this and they can never ever ever have that, which is not necessarily the case.
No.
What I do with the people that I coach is what I tell them is that once you've established what your trigger foods are, once we've established what those baselines are for what where your sugars are normal based on what you eat,
Yeah.
then we know what it is that you do eat that will spike that. So once we know that, then if there's something that you really, really particularly like, we can
Mhm.
actually reintroduce that at a moderated level like you do and know how to counteract it or make room for it. So if you know you want a piece of cake for dinner, then you're probably going to have a light lunch and you're probably going to have a light breakfast so that you can fit that in the evening, and then you walk or you drink your water and you work it off and you're good. So knowing how to counteract that sugar spike is perfect. That is something that we are educating our listeners on too, that you can have something sometimes. And you can't do it every day, no. And you can't do it as much as you want, whenever you want. You have to do it in moderation and you have to counteract it. So exercise, drinking more water, making room for it in your calorie or your carb count for the day, those are ways that you can counteract when you do have
Yes.
a little indulgence in something. So I think that's critical that you're able to educate folks on that as well. All
Yes.
right, then. Anything else you want to share about when people hit a roadblock or when they have a setback? Like in your case, you had some not little setbacks. You had some major setbacks. You had surgery. You were close to stroke the first time. You had a stroke. You've had the cancer. I mean, you've had so many major things happen in your life. And in addition to that, to have the diabetes on top of that, which could compound the issue. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's not even gone through half of what you've gone through, or who've gone through more than what you've gone through, even so? What would you say to those people?
I would say the first thing is trust God.
Mm,
It's okay to cry. That's important. We're
yeah,
still human.
right.
It's okay to cry. But after you get through crying, talk to the Lord and have Him show you what you need to do for your own individual body. Even
Wow.
though diabetes may be, it hits different ages, nationalities, it's still individual.
Right.
Because I've noticed the people with diabetes, if you and I were to talk more, Janice, I know there's some similarities, but there's some differences too.
Yeah.
Get to know your own body and
Yes.
listen to the Lord. Listen, because I never thought I would, I hate exercising. I never thought I would start exercising in the morning and at night.
And three
What?
times in the day sometimes when you want to have a little something. I could never. That is amazing to me that you're doing it three times a day sometimes because,
Now, I'm going to tell you,
I'm telling you, that's amazing to me.
the 3 times is rare. I've only
Yeah,
done
but
it about
still, just the fact
twice.
that you've done it three times.
But you know what? Because I don't mind. I love walking, but because
Mhm.
I don't want to exercise 3 times a day, I tell myself, okay, Jackie, you can't have that bad thing or that piece of cake or that macaroni and cheese, anything high carb. And
Yeah,
that's another important thing. When you have experienced diabetes,
yeah,
I'm speaking in faith. I no longer have diabetes, but guess what? I'm going to keep eating
the
fiber
right
food.
way.
I'm going to keep eating fiber, fiber, fiber. The
Right.
doctor told me when he first diagnosed me, he said,
Uh-huh.
make fiber your best friend.
Yeah.
And I did.
And do you know
And
why that is? Do you know why that is?
it helps, it helps keep the blood sugar regulated. It
Well, you
stops
know
the blood.
why? It does. It definitely does that. But one of the reasons that the dietitians and the nutritionists and the endocrinologists and all those people tell you to eat more fiber, because the body breaks down the fiber. It takes longer for it to break down the fiber, which uses up the energy, which is the sugar that's in your body to do that. So when you're
Yes,
using up the sugar that's supposed to be stored, or that usually gets stored because it doesn't get broken down with the insulin because your body's not producing enough of it, then it stores itself in the body where it's not supposed to be stored. And of course, it attacks the organs. However, when you eat fiber or when you eat complex carbohydrates, then the insulin will break that down and take longer to break that down and use the energy that's stored in the body to break down what you needed to break down. And that's why your sugars are now being regulated, because it's being used optimally as opposed to being just stuck in the blood vessels and stored in the body as fat and not doing your body any kind of good. It's used now for something good to break down that fiber and get the nutrients out of that food. And it takes longer to do that. And so it kind of regulates your sugars. And so that's why we're supposed to eat fiber. So fiber is your best friend if you're diabetic. The more fibrous the food, the better. And the more green, the better.
Yes. Well, thank you, because you're educating me, and I'm so glad that I'm open and humble enough to get information, because I'm just really starting to understand diabetes.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it took me going through some things to
To get
make
to,
me get the knowledge.
yes. Yes.
And not
So
only get the knowledge, I want to continue to share it like we're doing right now, sharing it with others.
I think that's awesome, because I know that that impacts other people that are going through, that have been through, that are about to go through. This impacts and helps them. So I think that what you say and what you do in your life, and me being able to bring your message and other people like you and bring their story to the forefront and showcase that it can impact a lot of lives. And that's my goal. Because in terms of education, once you are educated, then you know what to do. People who don't know what to do because they don't know because of lack of knowledge. So we know not because of lack of knowledge. And once we get that knowledge, then it's up to us to utilize that knowledge to our best advantage. And that's the purpose of this platform, so that people get educated, that people get to see success, that people get to see roadblocks and struggles, and yet still triumphs at the same time. So this is important, and this is why I felt that this was my calling, to be able to let people know other people's story, other people's struggle, other people's challenges, so that when they're going through similar things, that they can say, you know what, that resonates with me, because that's exactly what I'm going through right now. And then we can also help those who are on their way down the wrong garden path to not go down that path, because we already know what's at the end of that path and it's not good. So being able to steer them on the right path and have them be on the right way in terms of their lifestyle change, so that they know what to do and be educated about it. Okay, so I really want to thank you for coming back to share your story, Jackie. This was a powerful testimony, because I mean, what you've gone through, I mean, I'm not just talking about the diabetes, I'm talking about everything else that you've gone through, the stroke, the cancer, all of it. Trying to regulate it, not even realizing you weren't giving yourself the medication to help regulate it. All of the things and the challenges that you've gone through, you've remained strong. You've remained true to the course. You have gotten educated. You have opened up your mind to the change in the lifestyle and everything else. And you've drawn on your power that makes you keep going. And I think that right there is testimony and a half. I mean, it's just testimony. And so I thank you for coming back. I can't wait to hear your progress again. So anytime you have something to share, please contact us, because we're going to get you on to tell your story and to let people know your progress. I think it's important to see your growth and see your journey from the beginning until the very end, right? So thank you for coming by. So anyone that was here today listening, we're going to have Jackie's information in the comments. If you have a question, you can put a comment in, put your question in the comments, and we'll be able to have those questions answered for you. So if you have any questions for Jackie, if you have any questions for me, then you can put those questions in the comments, or you can contact us on the show, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. So thanks again, Jackie. Everyone, have a great week, and thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you, Jenisys.
Thank you again for joining us today. I'm Jenisys Walters from Jenisys Solutions Diabetes, the sugar-sweet enemy. Join us again for another story of change, where we discuss and we talk about ways you get to take your life back. Have a great week, but don't forget to drop us a comment about today's story. Here's to your health. See you all next time. Have a good one.